So my question is, how can we as a nation transform a crisis into a triumph? You might think, what crisis are we talking about? Is it unemployment? Is it the economy? Is it industry? Or this is how our mayor, Boris, spoke of it. As the world economy changes, as the global power shifts to the east, the constrictions on London's hub airport are becoming ever more apparent and ever more damaging. If we do nothing, it would at least lead to economic stagnation. So this is the problem. It's aviation versus economy. We have a lack of capacity. In a report actually commissioned by Heathrow, published last week, it was estimated that we are losing £14 billion a year in lost trade due to the lack of capacity at Heathrow Airport. That number rises by 2030 to $26 billion pounds a year. But dollars is 40 billion, isn't it? Their report was called One Hub or None, and they said their conclusion was either build a new runway at Heathrow or close us down and build another hub airport, which is a great introduction to our scheme. So if you look back, and it's interesting to see some of the earlier speakers, we look back to our history and the British mentality, and the British mentality of invention and creativity, clearly spoken by one of the speakers this morning. And we've been in the transportation business for a long time. One of our early inventions, computers, of course, not quite the iPad, but I think I've carried that in my pocket before. We've modernized transportation even into the rocket. Engineering is our base, and Philip Dilley and the Arab Group is a very strong proponent of engineering. We're the world leaders in engineering. And of course, communication, technology in terms of television, aviation, of course, with Mr. Whitnell's jet engine, and of course, sea transportation. So as we move quickly through these. So the vision of what we're talking about in terms of what we could do in London is the Thames Estuary. And in the Thames Estuary, we are looking, if we create the new airport, of potentially creating 200,000 new jobs in a new hub airport. A new hub airport, it's not quite fitting on the thing, with 4 runways, it says, and providing 400 potential gates, and providing through passenger of 150 million a year. If we increase that, I don't think it's going to change. It says 6 runways and potentially to 250 million, making it the largest airport in the world. A hub airport, not only for the UK, but for Europe as well. This is part of the vision, and some of you may have seen this, but I would draw your attention to the little piece down here. That's a cruise ship down here. So we are not only talking about aviation, we're talking about rail, we're talking about sea. We're talking about all the communication systems and all the transportation systems coming together as one hub. But when we look at the airport, and you see some of the other airport proposals, and I don't want to dish any of the other airport, let's dish the other airport proposals. No, we look at, say, well, let's look at an airport and let's think of it differently. Let's not just think about building another Stansted or building another Heathrow or building another Abu Dhabi airport or Doha airport and just rolling the same thing out. Let's look at aviation and let's see how we can take our inventive minds that we're so pronounced in the UK, and see where we look at the problem of aviation and see whether we can think about it differently. So here at the London City, at the Britannia Airport, we're thinking about bringing everyone together as one place, all the passengers in one place, and keeping the planes in one place, and then finding a new innovative system of connecting those two together. So we're talking about international connectivity with the airport. This is a slide that goes everywhere. Obviously, if we create a hub airport for the UK, for London, for Europe, we are connecting to the world. This is what we need. We need at least 4 runways. No airport in London does that. We are talking about putting it in the estuary only because one, land. we have a tremendous Heathrow is being engulfed by the city. We are having a tremendous cost of land and policy of development of land. So if we put it in the estuary and if we float it, we alleviate some of the issues we have from the economic and the environmental concerns. And we're also talking about connections back into the north of London, to the south, to the city, potentially Canary Wharf, and then to the West End as well. So instead of being a single airport which everyone comes to, there are certain hubs around the city which will take your landside experience and then transport you to the airside of the Britannia Airport. So, and also potentially, with the European feel, connecting over to the Netherlands, to France, either by sea or by rail, if Phyllis likes to go that far. So some of the early sketches we were developing, this is let's call it the extension of Crossrail, coming underneath, connecting us to the City of London, connecting us the other way to the European rail networks, connecting up to the floating airport, and connecting out to the runways. So more of the designs. So one of the ideas is, if we can keep the airport in a more economic and more efficient model, how can we, what tricks can we use? So planes make money when they're in the air, they don't make money when they're on the ground. So you land the plane on the runway, let's get the plane to the gate as soon as we can. And instead of designing gates, as we do currently in airports, which can accommodate a number of different aircraft, if you've got 400 gates or even 600 gates, how many 747s, for example, land at that airport? Well, there's probably a good percentage of that. So let's think about designing a gate. Instead of saying it can take a 747, a 380, a 380, a 777, designed specifically for a particular plane. So a 747. So the analogy would be, if I took my Mercedes into Quick Fit and asked them to change the tires, it might take an hour. If I'm lucky, it might take 2. If I took it into a Mercedes and took it into an F1 pit, those tires are changed in 1 second or 1.5 seconds. So if we can design a gate which is designed for an aeroplane, so the plane comes in, it can deplane, it can service, it can refuel, it can clean, it can get back off the gate into the air and back into the air again, it can be a more efficient model. So the idea is, how do we get those passengers from the terminal to the gate? So another technology of evolving, similar to the Terminal 5, an extension of the Terminal 5 car park shuttle pods, where we are taking people from the passenger hub in the middle out to the gate, and we allow the airport to do that, but in an environment which is controlled by the airline. So we're talking about taking from the lounge into an airline capsule and delivering them straight to the plane. Same sort of thing. So UK investment. Well, as we want to build this airport and it floats, we're talking about shipbuilding industry. So we can now go back to our historic shipbuilding yards of Glasgow, Newcastle, and Northern Ireland, Southampton, and bring investment. And if we're talking about billions, we're talking about 50 or 60 billion for this airport, we're bringing that investment not just to London, but to the rest of the UK. So this becomes a national project. And then when we've developed that technology and we've developed the new airport standards, we've developed this innovation, we then take that innovation and we transport it after the airport's finished, and it becomes another industry. Out to areas where countries and cities are feeling that same squeeze on land, and then we can actually start to export our technology. This is the airport. So what happens to Heathrow? Well, in 1981, Michael Heseltine said this rather terrible statement about a part of London. Georgie may recognize this part of London. It is the London Dockland, and it was Canary Wharf. And it was decimated. So if Canary Wharf was decimated as a transportation hub from the last century, and it's now, great feat of engineering, and as I understand it, if I read the paper right, a few months ago, the largest single employer in London, having taken over from the Heathrow group of area, creating tens of thousands of jobs and more to come, and still a future building on Canary Wharf. So perhaps the West can be the new East, and perhaps Heathrow, with its existing infrastructure, without, of course, if it expands third runway, fourth runway Heathrow, more infrastructure has to be built into Heathrow, but leaving the existing infrastructure, we can take the Heathrow city as it is, the second largest employer in London at the moment, and create a new satellite eco-city, Heathrow Gardens, creating another centre of growth for London, focused around existing infrastructure that's already there. Heathrow could create 200,000 new jobs, just as Canary Wharf has done the same thing again, but in the West. It could create 300,000 homes for London, and that must make the politicians happy. So in conclusion, We're talking about an innovative but deliverable product. We are talking about, if you go back to that earlier report of 14 billion lost every year, if you multiply that by 4, you get to the value of the construction, effectively, of building the Britannia Airport. So the question really isn't, should we build it or shouldn't we build it? It's how fast can we build it? Thank you.